All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Braden. For those that don't know me already, I am starting this YouTube channel. And, well, I've had this YouTube channel for like 10 years or more. I don't know. A long time. And I actually used to be a full-time YouTuber, but I did content that isn't related to this, really. So, what I'm starting to do now is book reviews and TV reviews, movie reviews, things of that sort. And then, I don't know, we'll bounce around and see what other interests pop up. But the first video I'm doing is a review of The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. And yeah, I know that I don't have like the sleeve on the book, so it looks kind of like shabby and grungy, whatever. I usually just take the covers off because I'm gonna lose them anyway. So why bend them and get them all jacked up? I keep them somewhere. They're probably just in the garbage. But anyway, The Way of Kings. So a little bit of background. This is an epic fantasy book. It is the first book of a much larger series called the Stormlight Archive. And the Stormlight Archive is a series within a much larger world called the Cosmere. And you can think of it kind of like, I think the best example is probably, that people would be familiar with, is sort of like how Captain America or Iron Man, they have their own standalone movies, but they're in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and eventually they cross paths, and become the Avengers, and have multiple movies together. And that's kind of like Brandon Sanderson's books. Oh man, it's crazy how ambitious this whole thing Sanderson has going on is. But anyway, let's get into, for the purposes of this video, let's get into this book. So, as you can see, this book is massive. Like, here's the font. Like, it's not like it's really big font. Kind of like Harry Potter books. They look really big. You can see them kind of back on my shelf. Like, right in there-ish. They look big, but the type is really big in the book, so you just kind of turn the page. Like, this one book is the size, it's just a tiny bit smaller than the entirety of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Just this book. So that just kind of gives you a little bit of perspective. I have to admit right off the bat that I started reading this book and probably got like a quarter of the way through and then gave up and quit and set it down for like 6 months, because it is... you really have to trudge through it to get going. But I don't want that to stop you, because let me supplement that with that. This is now my favorite series of all time. Above Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, above anything else. It does take some time to get into, because the world building in this book is crazy. I've kind of got like a little bit of notes of some kind of structure to go on, because with such a massive book, it's hard to do a review for it. Because I will just rabbit trail into all of the crazy things in the 1,000+ pages of this book. Let me give the backdrop. Oh, and also I'll just say this too. I'm going to start with no spoiler. Spoiler free. Anyone can watch this and not have it ruined. At a certain point, I'll put up spoiler alert so you know that I'm going to start talking about things for people that have already read the book, and kind of give my review, assessment, thoughts, etc. on that stuff. And so, okay, pre-spoiler. The backdrop of this book is... so much happens. Holy crap. Okay. So the way that it begins is it starts with 4,000 years ago. The end of this giant battle with these giant evil creatures made out of like stone, and these people with like magic swords and magic powers and all this stuff. And just like, you just dive in the deep end, and you're like, you have no clue what's going on. You don't know who anyone is. You don't know what's going on. You dive in, and you're not really supposed to know. Like, that's the point. You're not supposed to know what's going on. You're just supposed to know, basically, a giant battle just ended, and these people have decided, in order to end this conflict forever, or at least what they hope to be forever, they have to basically sacrifice one of their friends in order to do it. And that's kind of the backdrop. You don't really know a whole lot besides that, but you eventually learn. But then it fast forwards 4,000 years in the next chapter, and you're now following this assassin in white. And basically, long story short, this assassin is at this event that is the signing of a peace treaty. They're signing a peace treaty with this other species called the Parshendi. And they're kind of like humanoid creatures with like black, red, and white marbled skin. They can like jump super high, but they're not quite as technologically advanced, that kind of thing. They're signing a peace treaty. And at the peace treaty, the Parshendi hire an assassin to come and kill the king of the Alethi. And I don't want to spoil the chapter, like you can read it. There's this epic battle with these things called shard blades. As I'm thinking about this, it's like, I'm going to say these words that no one is going to have. Anyone who hasn't read the book, they're just going to fly over people's heads. And that's why I had to quit, because like a quarter of the way through the book, you're bouncing around between characters, you're bouncing around different areas of, different continents, and you're learning about the species of the world, the religions of the world, the cultures of the world, the magic system in the world, all this stuff. And it just got a little bit, it wasn't overwhelming, but I was just kind of like bored, I guess. I don't know. Bored's probably not the right word. I didn't invest enough into it. I was going over it too lightly to where when I'm supposed to know something already, it just went way over my head because I wasn't really paying attention earlier. So this isn't one of those books that you can just kind of lightly read. You've really got to dig into it. So anyway, let's back up just a little bit. The very first chapter is 4,000 years ago. Then we jump forward 4,000 years, and then it's an assassination of this king at this party. And this assassin is no joke. Like, no one can stop this guy. Even the best swordsmen who have this magic armor and this magic sword, they can't stop this dude. He kills like dozens, scores, if not more than 100 people who are trying to stop him from killing the king. And he just tears through them. Fool can like walk on the walls like Inception. Fool can like glue people to stuff with magic. It's crazy. Like, you just have to read it. You have to read it. I can't really explain. I won't do it justice. And so he goes after the king. The king actually puts up a good fight. His name is Gavilar, and he's actually a central character, even though he dies right here. He dies, and then that starts this massive war because the Parshendi take credit for it. They say, yeah, we hired the assassin. And then everyone's like, why would you hire an assassin at a peace treaty? I thought we were signing a peace treaty. Like, what's going on? And it's a mystery. Like, no one really knows. And this is like a war kingdom. Like, Alethkar, the Alethi people, are like a militaristic country where everything, the culture is built around warfare and soldiering and fighting. And so you don't mess with them. And the Parshendi just assassinated their king. So what do? They declare war on the entire race of Parshendi. That's the backdrop of this book. The next chapter is 7 years later from that. Really, now we're finally actually starting the events of the book. 7 years after the assassination of this king. And so that's the backdrop. I know that was super long-winded, but that's why it takes a little bit to get into this book, like I was saying. That's why I had to stop, because we start 4,000 years ago, and I have no idea what's going on. Then we jump forward 4,000 years, and then I still have no idea what's going on with this assassin in white who kills this king. And I'm like, I don't know who any of these people are. I don't know how this magic works. And then we fast forward another 7 years, and then the first chapter is following this character that dies at the end of the chapter. And you're like, okay, what? And then we jump forward a few more months, and finally we begin the events of the book. And so now we can begin. That's the backdrop. That's what's going on. There's a war going on between the Alethi and the Parshendi. And keep in mind that the Alethi is just one kingdom on this whole planet. You know, like they're in charge of this country, but they're just a fraction of the population of the people. Eventually, this whole thing consumes the whole planet and it gets crazy. Maybe that's not too spoilery. I think that's fine. I think that's fine to leave in here. I'm just saying eventually the events of this book cover more than just this kingdom. You start to see the other countries come into the fold in different ways and different characters from different places and blah, blah, blah. The format of the book is, and the structure is similar to that of A Song of Ice and Fire or Game of Thrones, for anyone that's read those books. Or even if you've just seen the show, it's kind of the same. It follows a bunch of different characters and has different perspectives for each chapter. I want to say there's probably like 12 different point of views that you follow in this book. Maybe more than that. But there's really three main ones. There are three main characters. And those are Kaladin, my boy, Shallan, who I called Shallan. The whole entire time I was reading the first book, I was calling her Shallan. I didn't listen to audiobooks or anything like that. Her name is spelled S-H-A-L-L-A-N. Dudes that I know whose name is Alan, which is A-L-L-A-N, it's pronounced Alan. And so I was like, oh, just throw an S-H in front of it, Shallan. That's her name. But then I come to find out, everyone calls her Shallan. It's just like, that's stupid. Her name's Shallan. But whatever. Her name is Shallan. And I'll go with that from now on. So we have Kaladin, Shallan, and Dalinar. These are the three main characters of the story. Kaladin is one of my favorite characters in anything ever. This is one thing that's super important to me with any book or story or TV show or movie or whatever, any type of content like that, is that I'm a sucker for a good hero and a good main character. Like, and when I say good, I'm not talking about like interesting and blah blah blah, although that also, but I mean good in like the moral sense, like someone who is the good guy. I like a good versus evil tale. I want a really 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 evil bad guy and a really 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 good hero. Kaladin is not perfect at all, but he is good. And now all of a sudden we fast forward, Kaladin, who was this guy who was like a captain or, you know, had some authority, I forget what rank he actually was in the military, is now a slave with a brand on his forehead marking him a deserter and a slave. Like the absolute worst thing you could have in their society. And Kaladin has that branded on his forehead and can't escape it. And he's locked in a cage being transported across the wilds with a bunch of other slaves as in part of the slave trade. So the mystery is like, what the heck happened here? How did this happen? And eventually you find out as the story unfolds. And this little fairy thing called a spren. See, this is where it's going to get confusing. Everything is different here. The physics are different. The creatures are different. One of the very few things that is not different is that there happens to be humans, men and women, that live here. But the planet is different. Everything is different. But there's this spren, which are like these little things. I don't know if I can do this review without going through and actually explaining what a spren is. Okay, so a spren is like a little creature. I'll give you an example. There's like creation spren, pain spren. There, what are some other ones? Anger spren, wind spren. Think of them like little ghosts, almost. They're not ghosts, but just think of them like that for the sake of simplicity right now. That are attracted to certain human emotions or certain actions that happen in the physical realm. And so wind spren, whenever there's a big gust of wind spren are really attracted to it and go around and want to be a part of it. So there's a storm, there's wind spren everywhere. And if someone gets really angry and mad at someone, there's going to be anger spren that pop up. And they all look different and it's weird. And you learn more about this as the story goes. But for now, I think that's enough. But they're stupid. They're dumb. They're not sentient. They can't like talk and hang out with you and stuff like that. But weirdly enough, this one windspren starts following Kaladin around. He's like, what the heck is this? Why is this windspren following me? It's not even windy right now. Like, what the heck's going on? And then it starts talking to him. It puffs up out of this ribbon of light and in the shape of like this little girl, this young woman, not a little girl, like a young woman in like a little skirt. And she's like really bubbly and cute and curious. And she starts talking to him and he's just like, and no one else can see her. And so it's just kind of a weird thing. And they start talking and she doesn't know. She's like a baby and she's curious about everything. Like she sees a leaf and it's like, whoa, what is that? Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, and her name is Silfrina. Or Silfrina. She goes by Sil. She's one of my favorite characters in anything also. And he's just like weirded out by it because no one else can see her and Spren aren't supposed to be able to do this. And he is getting transported to the Shattered Plains, which is this place where the war is taking place. Okay, think of it like this. It's kind of like the Grand Canyon, except instead of a canyon, it is a flat plain. And then just imagine someone came and smashed the center of it with a giant sledgehammer and shattered it. And so now there's giant gaps between these plains, and it's rocky and there's no soil and grass. It's just like this barren wasteland that the Parshendi just go and hide out in because the humans can't cross the gaps in between each of the different shattered pieces, but they can jump across. Some humans might be able to pole vault across the smaller ones, but other than that, they have to like build bridges to get across. Whereas the Parshendi can just jump across from side to side to side and it's easy. So they have the advantage there. So anyway, probably didn't need to explain it all the way there, but I did. And there's a way more to it than that. There's also the chasm fiends that roam around and the gem hearts that they're going after. And I know I'm saying stuff that doesn't make any sense to you right now. And that's why it took me so long to get into this book. But once you get into it, it's just like, it'll just blows your mind. So Kaladin is being taken to the war, and he's like, finally, this is where he's been trying to go as a soldier. He was in the military before, and he wanted to go fight in this war. You know, the war it's called the Vengeance Pact. They want, they're getting revenge on the Parshendi for killing their king. So it's like, oh, for glory, for revenge, for justice, we're gonna go, take vengeance against the Parshendi. And so that's the war he was wanting to fight, and not these like random skirmishes and land battles that he was at. So in one way, he's kind of like, okay, finally, I actually get to go be in the real war. Little does he know, he's not actually being sold as a slave to become a regular member in the military. He is going to become a bridgeman. It is worse than being a slave. Being a bridgeman is like the worst thing you can imagine. And Sanderson does such a great job of bringing you really into the depths of Kaladin's misery. It's just that it's this job where all you do is you lug this massive wooden bridge on your shoulders and you run miles across these plains with really it's not like you've got Nikes on and you've got tough actin, tenactin for your athlete's foot. It's like you get nothing. You don't get shoulder pads that get put on so that the bridge doesn't hurt. No, it's like this thing is eating into your skin. You are bleeding everywhere. Your feet are bleeding everywhere, and you have to sprint. And then finally, once you get to the place where you can put the bridge down and let all the soldiers cross, you then have to pick the bridge back up, go run to the next plateau, and do it again. Over and over and over and over with no breaks until you actually get to the battle. And then you get to be the front line where everyone is just trying to kill you. And you're exhausted because you've been sprinting with a giant wooden bridge on your back for hours. It's brutal. I'm not even close to doing justice of how miserable it is. And then you get back and you get paid like $2. I mean, the way that money actually works in this world is with spheres and Stormlight. Oh man, there's too many things to explain. But basically, it's like you get paid almost nothing to do it, and then the next morning you might wake up and get called again, and hey, we got to go fight another battle. It's over here on this plateau, 6 miles in. Put on your weak little flip-flop sandals and let's get there. It's like you're expected to last maybe 2 weeks, maybe a month, and your life is misery. That is Kaladin's life now, and that's how his story begins. But there's something special about Kaladin. Here's another important note that I totally left out, and this is really big, not just to Kaladin as a character, but as to the structure of the books. Not just this first book, but the second and the third and all of the books of this series. They followed this structure of each book is broken into 5 parts. So I've got the book right here. I can't really show you. I mean, I could show you, but it would just take too long. There's part 1, and then a series of interlude chapters, and then part 2, and then a series of interludes. Part 3, interludes. Part 4, interludes. Part 5. And part 5 is just crazy. Part 5 is what everyone refers to as a Sanderlanche, like an avalanche by Brandon Sanderson. This build-up keeps going on, and then all of a sudden, you just open the floodgates and everything pours. It's like, you don't start the 5th part of any of these books unless you want to stay up all night. Unless you've got like 8 hours to kill. Because you're going to be turning page until the book is done. You can't stop. So there's one character that it has flashbacks to that give you the background of the character in each of the books. In the first book, it's Kaladin. It's so good. It's so good. And then eventually you come up to the present through those flashbacks and find out why Kaladin got that brand on his forehead, why he was marked a deserter. And then you start to learn about Syl, that random spren that is following him around, and what's going on with that. And it's really cool to explore and figure out. Okay, that's Kaladin, one of my favorite characters in anything ever. The second character, I don't dislike this character. Okay, it's Shallan. I'm talking about Shallan. So coincidentally, Shallan becomes one of my favorite characters as the series goes on. But in this first book, like she just wasn't doing it for me. And it's not because it might be that I don't relate as much because I'm a man and she's the main female character. Like it very well could play a part. The main thing I think for me is that she is not with any of the other characters. It's kind of like Daenerys Targaryen in Game of Thrones or A Song of Ice and Fire. Like she's over on another continent, and so is Shallan. Shallan is on another continent. Is it another continent? No, just another country. I think there really is only one continent now that I'm thinking about it, on Roshar. Roshar is the planet. Okay. But yeah, she's in a whole other country. She's not at the Shattered Plains. Whereas Dalinar, I'll get to him in a little bit, but Kaladin and Dalinar and most of the other characters of the story that aren't necessarily like the main characters but are still really big characters, they're all at the Shattered Plains. But Shallan is not. And so it was tough for me to really care about what was going on with her because it seemingly didn't connect at all with the rest of the story. So a little background for Shallan. Shallan is a super witty, sarcastic redhead. She's like a 17-year-old girl. She's really intelligent, really bright. And saying the word bright made me remember about how there's like light eyes and dark eyes, and they call light eyes people brightness. In this world, rather than racism, they have like eyeism. I don't know if that, you know what I'm saying? It's like they've got The color of your eyes is what they judge people by. Kaladin is a dark eyes. Shallan and Dalinar are light eyes. Like they've got glowing kind of eyes. You really have no idea why that matters at all at the beginning. And for almost all of the book, you have no clue why that's the thing. But that's a thing. But anyway, Shallan is a bright eyes, which means she's wealthy, pretty much, which means she's from like a noble family. But she's going to try and become the ward, or like the understudy, the apprentice, of Jasnah Kholin. And I'll just say this too. So I was saying earlier how Shallan, I was calling Shallan the whole time. I was also calling Jasnah the whole time. Because it's spelled Jasnah. And I know like in Hebrew, the J makes the Y sound. Well, apparently in Alethi, that's how it works too. So I was saying the name wrong the whole time. And it took me a while to finally commit to saying Jasnah and Shallan instead of what I think was the right way to say it, Jasnah and Shallan. But anyway, I digress. Shallan is going to find Jasnah Kholin. And this is the first time I'm mentioning the name Kholin. So, the king that was assassinated at the very beginning was Gavilar Kholin. His daughter is Jasnah Kholin. His brother is Dalinar Kholin. That's the only kind of loose connection Shallan's story arc has to anyone else in the story, is that she's becoming the understudy of someone who's related to the other main characters. But anyway, so she's trying to become the understudy of Jasnah Kholin. And Jasnah is this girl who is just like bomb. She's supposed to be one of like the prettiest, curvaceous, intelligent women on the planet. She's also probably most famous for being a heretic. In this culture, it is like absolutely a no-no to say that God does not exist. And God's name is honor in this world. It's a religion called Vorinism. Okay, it's not worth digging into all this stuff. Basically, Jasnah just says, honor, there is no proof that honor even exists. And so I don't, and then she comes out and publicly says, yeah, I don't believe in God, basically. And she's just ostracized for that. But everyone is just like, look at this weirdo, this idiot that doesn't even think honor exists. But she doesn't care. Jasnah's just like, S my D, I'm just going to say whatever. This is what I actually think. And I love Jasnah. She's one of my favorite characters in the series. But this is about Shallan. Through her tenacity and through her determination, she eventually wins Jasnah over. And Jasnah's like, okay, you can be my ward. But it turns out things change as the story goes on, obviously. But anyway, so I won't go any further on Shallan. That's kind of where her story starts. And it's just not as exciting as the other people's story. Okay. Third character, Dalinar Kholin. This guy is just like, this dude is just wild. This character is fantastic. Kaladin is my main dude, but most people love Dalinar the most, as far as from what I've seen. Dalinar is like probably in his either upper 40s or low 50s. In his youth, I'll just say this, he's called the Blackthorn. He was this brutal war tyrant. Literally has probably killed thousands of people on his own, like with his own hand. I'm not talking about like by leading an army. Dalinar himself has probably killed thousands, maybe tens of thousands with his own hand. Like this guy is crazy. He's a shard bearer. Think of that as like a Jedi. He's got a lightsaber. They're a little bit different. They're a lot different, but there's special swords in this world called shard blades, and it can slice through anything. If you slice a human with it, it just basically severs like their soul. It doesn't even like cut the skin. It just kills the body. And if you cut them at the spine, they're dead. Their eyes turn to smoke and burn away, and they're just dead. Gone. Dead. Dead. And he also has shard plate. If you wear it, you become really, really strong, really, really fast. It enhances all of your abilities and also is extremely durable. And so these things are really valuable, really rare, and no one really knows what they are. They're kind of a mystery. So Dalinar, he's also, like I mentioned before, he's the brother of the assassinated king, and he is basically in charge of the war effort now to get vengeance. He's pretty much running the show because the new king is young and doesn't really know what he's doing. So Dalinar is effectively the ipso facto king, and a lot of people see it. He doesn't try to be. He doesn't want to be. He just kind of feels like he has to be because they need a strong hand right now. Anyway, every high storm, another thing that I haven't explained yet, think of like a Cat 10 hurricane. No, like a Cat 100 hurricane that crosses the world on a loop. And if you're not inside in like a bunker during these high storms, you're dead. Like, you're straight up just dead. You don't, unless you're every time a high storm comes by, Dalinar falls into these visions, and he's having visions of the past. And he lives these visions. He doesn't just see them, he like becomes a person at the time. Feels the pain, feels the emotions, can talk with people, can move around on his own like he's like lucid in these dream vision things. And they're of events that happened in the past, hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago. At the end of them, shows up to him and says, you need to unite them. He's constantly telling him, unite them. And Dalinar's like, I don't know what this means. What do you mean, unite? Unite who? He basically starts trying to unite the Alethi people. And he thinks he might be going insane. He doesn't know if the visions are real. People start finding out about how he goes into these spasms, and they're like, look, Dalinar's losing his mind. This guy's, he's getting old. And so that's kind of Dalinar's beginning. And so, yeah, those are the main characters. I don't know. I'm like spending way too much time talking about this. Let's fast forward into the spoiler zone. The way things end up, I don't really know where to begin. I think I'll just probably take it one character at a time. And I'll talk about Kaladin first, because Kaladin's my favorite. So again, hey, spoilers right now. Kaladin and Syl's relationship is just so great. Because he's just like this mopey, brooding, like sad sack. And Syl comes in and hits you with like the total opposite. And you need it, because if it was just mopey and sad all the time, I would just be depressed myself. But Syl comes in, brightens things up, brightens Kaladin up, saves his life, really, because he's going to kill himself at the chasm, and I thought that was so great. She brought the leaf to him that he was going to kill himself with, because she didn't know what it does. She thought she was helping. She's like, hey, here's this leaf. It's so beautiful. And it's like, well, if I eat this leaf, I kill myself. That's why I kept it. But it tugs at your heartstrings, and Kaladin, it pulls him back from the brink of killing himself in the, what is it called? I was about to say the glory hole. Not that. Glory chasm? What was it called? Something like that. Honor chasm. Honor chasm. Okay, not even close. And the way he bonds with Bridge 4 and the Lopin and Rock and Teft and Sigzil and all these dudes, it's just great. And Scar and Drahi and the list goes, and Moash. I won't say anything else. But Moash, come on, son. But it was just so great. And then when they were planning to escape, and they had that perfect opening after the battle at the tower, I think, after Sadius, who I called Sadius the whole time, another name that I was mispronouncing the whole time. I was thinking, like habeas corpus, Sadius. But apparently it's Sadius, whatever. Sadius is a great bad guy, by the way. That was one thing that I really liked about the book, is how I really hated Sadius. And they did a great job of making me hate him. So thank you for that. But Kaladin was like, we have to go save him. Everyone on Bridge 4, they had built up to a point where it was like, yeah, we do. And not a single person objected. I thought that was great. And then he goes and saves him, and then Bull just goes Super Saiyan. Oh, I loved it, man. When he went Super Saiyan for the first time, I was just like, whew, yeah, that was great. So anyway, I love that. Kaladin's arc was so well done, and to do his flashbacks talking about like becoming a surgeon and saving life, but he has this, this dichotomy of being like the healer versus the killer, right? But like, how do they go hand in hand with one another? And he's trying to save life, but do I have to take life in order to save life? And that philosophical question that comes up, I think Sanderson played that brilliantly, and I loved it. So let me dash forward now to Shallan. Like I said before, I didn't think her arc was the best, and I think probably the thing I hated most about it was Capsule. That dude just sucked. You didn't get me, Brandon. You didn't get me with Capsule. He wasn't charming enough. He wasn't clever enough. He was just kind of sucked. I don't know. I don't really have better words to put for it. I didn't care about him. And I'm like, why does Shallan even like this guy? This guy sucks. But anyway, somehow he wooed Shallan, and it turns out, he's actually an assassin. He was trying to kill Yasna. And he almost accidentally kills Shallan, and then he does kill himself because he's an idiot. The only exciting times to me was when Shallan was like seeing Spren, the weird, crazy face guys. Like, it was kind of spooky, actually. Like, that was kind of scary. That was probably the most interesting part, and also just Yasna being around. I was like, let me get more Yasna. Like, I want more Yasna. Oh, when Yasna goes out and teaches the lesson, you know what I'm talking about. She just went wild. That came out of nowhere to me. I was like, dang, because she just lit these dudes up. Like, it wasn't even like she just murdered these people. In the next book and the third book, Shallan becomes one of my favorites. But in this one, I just didn't really care because she's over in Kharbranth, and so I don't care, right? I care about what's going on at the Shattered Plains. I care about this war, and maybe that's the masculine part of me, although I am extremely anti-war. Let me just be clear on that. But there's, the story over there in the Shattered Plains where there's fighting and conflict and stuff going on was just a lot more interesting to me. So now, Dalinar having these visions when Honor tells him that he's dead. But that was pretty crazy when he's just like, yeah, look, I'm dead. So you're gonna have to fight without me here. And so Dalinar's like, what? And he's just like, how am I I'm supposed to be listening to a dead god? I'm supposed to be following a dead god? And then he knows that his niece, who he respects a ton, Yasna, she already doesn't think that God exists. But Dalinar now knows that he did exist. He used to. So we don't really understand our past like we think we do. And that is a really important theme throughout the whole series, right? Is that, it starts off 4,000 years ago. And then after this game of telephone through history, all of a sudden, these things that they think happened, history is written by the victors and things are erased. And all of a sudden, 4,000 years later, they only have a fragment of the truth left. Okay, I will say this. This is one of the big complaints I have with the story, actually. This is probably my biggest complaint of the whole thing. And I've heard other people talk about it, too, that have agreed with me. I've heard other people vigorously defend this. But I'm going to make this accusation. I thought it was stupid how Dalinar thought that Honor told him to trust Sadeas. And he's like, hey, should I trust Sadeas? And he's just like, yes. But the way he said it, I don't even want to bring up the direct quote. It didn't make sense for the guy to say yes right there in response to that. He just said it out of nowhere. And it's just like, you could have actually written something that made him say yes more realistically at that time. But the phrase he said, I probably should look it up, but I'm too lazy. But it didn't make any sense as to why that guy would have said yes right there. He wasn't actually answering Dalinar's question. He was just saying yes in the normal cadence of his normal recorded audio, right? Yeah, I thought that was bad. There could have been a better... I liked the idea of that, but I think it could have been done a lot better. So I thought it was dumb. I thought it was weak. I shouldn't say I thought it was dumb. I thought it was poorly executed. So that was the thing I didn't like plot-wise the most about the story. But then when it all came together, when Sadeas betrays him, wants to get him killed, and Adolin, by the way, it's like, don't mess with my boy Adolin, all right? That fool is going to lay it down whether you like it or not. And he was putting it down on the Persendi. It was, ooh. And so was Dalinar. And Kaladin, when he came in with that Stormlight and he was just popping, like the Sanderlands hit me hard right there. But I love that. And then when he came back and confronted Sadeas at the end, part of me was hoping for just a showdown where he just lit him up. Where he was just like, all right, Sadeas, we're done. Like, I know we got a history. I know we used to be boys, but a bow, you're out. But instead, he took the high road, which I'm glad about. But in the moment, I was like, all right, give it to him, Dalinar. But instead, what he did, he just put the sword down and was like, look, you can have the shard blade. I know you've wanted this for a long time. You give me all your bridgemen, all these people you've been treating like absolute trash, basically like slaves. I'll give you my shard blade if you give me all of them. Sadeas, of course, he's like, yeah, of course I'll take that. And he was just like, look, pardon my French, and I'm gonna, this is the Braden translation, this isn't in the book. He's just like, look, Sadeas, you and I both know you're a little bitch, but I'm better than that. So I'm not even gonna put you on blast in front of all these people. I'm gonna be the bigger man. I'm gonna give you my shard blade and show you that I don't need that to be better than you. My shard blade isn't what makes me better. I'm gonna take the honorable position, pun intended. I'm gonna get these bridgemen who actually deserve my respect, unlike you, and we're gonna do our own thing, and I'll see you next time. And I was just like, Dalinar, you absolute beast. And it was great, and I loved it, and Kaladin and Bridge 4 become his bodyguard, and it sets you up for the next book. and the next book is just so much better than this one. That's what I love about this series. It just, the stakes keep getting higher, the characters keep getting more complex, deeper, stronger, faster. That's all I'll say for this review. I've recorded for more than an hour. I'm gonna chop this up in editing, so it'll probably be shorter. Maybe like, I don't know, how much can I chop? That's my review of Way of Kings. Oh, I guess I should give an overall kind of assessment, huh? Sorry, this is my first review. I'm kind of winging it right now. Most people do, 0 out of 5 stars. How many stars am I going to give the book? I'm going to jump it to a 1 out of 10. 1 being absolute garbage, worst book I've ever read. 5 being, this was an okay average book. I probably won't complete the series, but I didn't hate it. And 10 being, greatest book of all time, nothing will ever be better. You should also know that I don't rate systems. I have a beef with, okay, sorry for clicking into the mic again with the pen. Sorry about that. Okay, the NBA dunk contest. I know this seems like it has nothing to do with anything, but it always makes me so mad when they give a dunk a 50 out of 50, and then someone comes and does a dunk that's way better than the one that already got 50, but they can't give you a better score because they already gave the top score to an inferior dunk. So I'm gonna reserve 10 stars for perfection. So if I don't give something super high marks, it's not because I don't like it. So if I was to give something a 6, that means it's a good book. That's not me hating on it and giving it a low number. If I give it a 7, 8, it's like, that means they're fantastic. If I hit you with a 9, you gotta be really good. So I'm gonna put Way of Kings. I'm like thinking about it right now. I haven't like thought ahead of time. Probably should have done this. Way of Kings is a 7.5. It is a very, very good book. My issues with it is that there's a lot of world building. It's tough to get into. You really have to take a deep dive if you're going to do it. But its biggest strength is that the payoff is huge. This is the beginning of a series, of a huge, massive series. And the book itself is massive and huge. Like, I don't know, this is probably like the first 4 Harry Potter books in this book. Maybe the first 3.5, I don't know. And so the pacing could have been better, but the payoff is great. And it sets up the series really well. It gets you into the characters that you need to know. The magic system is unique. Like, the structure of the world is fantastic. Overall, fantastic book. The character development is amazing. And the characters themselves are just brilliant. The writing is great. The pacing is a little bit weak. It's good, but it's just a little bit weak, especially compared to book 2. But 7.5, Way of Kings. It is the best opener to a series ever, and it is the best series that I've ever read. Of course, the series isn't done, so it's hard to really give it that high of praise, but so far, 3 books in, it is my favorite series ever. Anyway, 7.5, Way of Kings. That's my first review. Thank you for watching my first video. I'm going to try and make more. I'm going to, hopefully, I want to do a lot of the Stormlight archive because that's what I've been on right now. Again, thank you guys for watching this video, and please subscribe to the channel if you want to hear more, and leave comments giving me your guys' thoughts, because one of the reasons that I've started this channel to begin with is because in my personal circle, there's only a select few that I can like really geek out on with like this fantasy fiction and like all this stuff that I'm going to be going through here. So I wanted to get involved in a community that I can talk about and throw theories out and give reviews on and get feedback on and hear what other people think. And so the interaction is really what I'm doing this for. Like, I used to do YouTube for a living, and part of it, part of the stress would come with it because if I didn't get enough views, then we didn't make enough money and blah, blah, blah. And so I don't have that stress anymore. It's like I work on the side. So now I'm just doing YouTube for fun, and I'm excited to do it. And again, I'm kind of rambling now, but thank you again for watching. Please subscribe. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll have more videos soon. All right. Peace.